Hey, you guys. I was sitting here pondering things, and I wanted to ponder out loud. I was thinking about the past and comparing it to how I feel now. And that's why I wanted to ponder out loud, because it's like learning from it, basically. So I think it's so amazing how much when you go into separation from your twin flame, the triggering of the separation wound specifically, how horrible it makes you feel. Like, and I have some this, I don't know what I'm trying to say. This is not what triggered me thinking about this tonight, but I did read a post recently on Facebook because I'm in a bunch of twin flame groups, even though I don't really participate, but it shows up in my news feed. So I just happened to see it and scrolling, talking about the person was saying, this is so painful. Why is it so painful? It was clearly, I saw multiple posts of it like that, actually. And it was clearly all people who are in the beginning stages of the journey, recent separation. One of them, actually a couple of them, were even saying, like, I don't want to do this. Like, why do I have to be in so much pain? Why can't I, give up and all that stuff? And for whatever reason tonight, I don't even remember what brought it to mind, but I was just thinking about how I feel now versus how I felt in the past. And yeah, it wasn't even in the very beginning of my journey. It was in the middle, but like the middle section, if you can. It was the beginning of my spiritual warfare journey. I will say that, like the first third of it. And I remember just like, it was also before that, actually, now that I think about it. It was before I found out about the spiritual warfare, and it was the beginning part of after I found out. And that separation wound, or just the separation, the ache of separation, like it really, Divine Feminines, I'm sure you can relate to this. That's why I'm bringing it up. It makes you feel so horrible that you literally want to die, right? Like the pain of being stuck away from your twin flame literally makes you feel like you want to die. And and I don't feel like that anymore, and I haven't for a long time. And now I wish I could go back and take back some things that I said to my twin back in the day, back a while ago, years ago now. When I was trying to get through to him in different ways at the time, that of course I couldn't see clearly because I was in the pain of my separation wound. And I did tell him that I felt like that. And now I wish I could take it back, because I wish I hadn't made him feel guilty about that. And I wonder if he still now sometimes feels guilty about that. And now that I understand things so much differently, I wish I could take that back. But I can't. And I still think those were important or they led to important conversations, regardless. And important in multiple ways, like partially for what was said and just also for the interactions. But in any case, my point more here is when you're in those early days or even the middle stages still, it really feels that horrible sometimes. And I did want to add the caveat that I was in a spiritual warfare, major, severe spiritual warfare situation as well. And that does make it feel worse, because if you're fighting entities, they intentionally make you feel like that because they're trying to make you give up. So keep that in mind, okay? And spiritual warfare, 50% of twin flames deal with spiritual warfare, and many of them don't even know it. So if you're dealing with spiritual warfare, it's just going to make you feel worse, because it's designed that way. Like the dark wants you to feel that way to try and get you to give up. So, and they don't care. The dark doesn't care if you give up by walking away or by suicide. So, I was debating on telling a story, but I'm going to save it. Anyway, so yeah, I remember feeling like that. And now that I don't feel like that anymore, now that I have so much more perspective on the journey and the wounds and the process, the healing process and all that stuff, like now I'm able to see, like, first of all, what is that? You know, those, the way that you're feeling, like it's all deep wounds being triggered that need to be healed. And what you're really feeling there is the original core separation wound from when you were separated from your twin flame. I don't know this for certain, and I don't really know that anybody can, but I have a slight theory here that it also hurts more because in like the 4D and 5D, your souls are still further apart because you're still going through that reunification process. Because I have noticed over time how as our souls have gotten closer and closer in reunifying, how I feel his energy has changed as well. Like I used to have a lot of interactions with his higher self, like conversations, and even like feeling him next to me as if he was physically next to me. And I don't as much anymore, but at the same time, I always feel his energy. And I know that part of it is just simply because in the 5D, we're unified to the point where there isn't as much separation anymore between our two beings, if that makes sense. So anyway, so I think that's part of it, that when you're in that state, actually, you know what? It's coming to me right now. Part that may partially be it, my theory, but it's also that you are still lower in frequency. You are still operating more from the 3D than you are from the 5D. You probably don't have any understanding or very little understanding of what's going on from the 5D perspective at that point in time. So the only thing that you know and feel and are processing is at the 3D. It's not the 5D. When you are operating from that 5D perspective, you do have that stronger connection with your twin's higher self, and you do have those interactions even, and you feel their energy all the time. It's funny, it's been pointed out to me that now recently, like, we're even more connected than we were previously, that we're feeling each other's energy so strongly. And you know, it's very subtle too, so it's hard to recognize, but I have noticed that. But anyway, but back in those early stages, sorry, I had to find my words. In those early stages, you guys aren't operating from that place of 5D perspective. You're operating from the 3D and what you know and understand in your physical reality. And that's the separation. And that separation connects directly to that original separation wound from when you were originally separated from your twin in the first place, when your souls were split. And that was most definitely a huge, it created a huge ache just from a soul level. And so that's what you're experiencing, okay? So it's multifaceted. I have multiple thoughts running through my head right now that I want to explore, and I don't have enough time, so I'm going to have to go into another video to explore them all. But like, part of it, like when I in March channeled the separation of all the twins in Atlantis, I literally instantly, in that moment when I channeled it, it was like I felt that separation all over again. Like I burst into tears, and all I was just channeling memories and what happened from Atlantis for me and for the entire 144,000 collective. And I literally, like, I sobbed for that, and it was the pain of that separation, of when the dark came between twin flames then. So that's one aspect of it. Okay, we're going to have to pause. Hold on. So I was just saying one aspect of it is you might not have the physical memories of it, but your soul is remembering that original separation from your twin. And that's part of the reason why it hurts so much. And then another reason why, well, of course, I also already gave the example of if you have spiritual warfare, the dark is intentionally making you feel horrible. So that's also adding to the pain, okay? Just something to keep in mind. I'm hesitant to tell stories about that because I don't know who might watch and I don't want to freak people out. But I have talked quite a bit about, I've certainly acknowledged the spiritual warfare that I've been through. My twin and I have both been through, although he's only partially aware of it. But yeah, I mean, I've battled a lot in terms of both black magic and demonic entities, and I have helped clients get through that as well. And, you know, I am going to tell the story. The first demonic entity I had to battle literally was doing poltergeist activity in my house to try and scare me into quitting and giving up. And when that didn't work, it actually also messed with my car, but my protections were strengthened after that so that it couldn't do that anymore. And then after that, when it couldn't cause physical problems, then it switched over to mental. And it literally was like making me depressed and anxious and upset and wanting to die even more. And then something happened one day. I don't remember what it was that made me realize it. It might have just simply been, you know, as I was being educated about how demonic entities work and function and all that stuff. It just clicked in my head that part of the reason why I was feeling so horrible was because this thing was trying to make me feel that way and trying to make, okay, basically it was like, okay, if I can't hurt you, then I'm going to try and make you hurt yourself, basically. And when I realized that, every time I've had to deal with an entity, I just get madder and madder. Like each time I get more angry and I get more resolve to destroy them all. And that time when I realized that, I literally got up off the couch after sobbing. I was laying there sobbing and I got up off the couch and I was like, it's going to be you or it's going to be me, and it's not going to be me. And when that clicked for me, I was able to really like control it more, control the emotions more, and come from that understanding. And, you know, while that story might freak some people out, I do think it's important to share these things because spiritual warfare is way more common than what people realize. And it's extremely common in the twin flame community, but even in like everyday life, it's way more common than people realize. And I do think it's important to share those stories to educate people so that they can get the proper help because it can be dangerous. Fortunately, I had the right help to get through it and not get hurt in the process for any of us. But anyway, so spiritual warfare is another reason why you can feel worse because they target you in that way. But what I was going to say to leave that topic behind was, so we covered the original core separation wound. We covered the spiritual warfare, which, you know, that original core separation wound, for those, the 144,000 who were in Atlantis, there's multiple groups of 144,000. I haven't talked about this yet because I haven't had time to record the videos. But the core original group of 144,000 was in Atlantis, and the Dark specifically targeted them and separated all of them because they were the only ones who could defeat the Dark, and the Dark was taking over the planet and descending Earth from 60 or 70, I can't remember now, 6th dimension or 7th dimension, down to 3rd dimension or 3D in order, well, the Dark just wanted to take over the planet and they can't exist in higher dimensions. So they were basically, the Dark was getting rid of the twins because the twins were the ones who had the power to defeat the Dark. So anyway, so they were the original cause of that in the first place. So of course the dark is trying to prevent twins from coming into union now because it prevents ascension. So hopefully you get the correlation. But anyway, the other thing I was going to say was that the next thing is for why it hurts so much is because as your soul is remembering that separation wound and is remembering who this person is to you, your 3D ego center, I prefer ego center because ego can get mixed up with psychology. And I think of ego center as like your wounded inner child. And or if you have the little angel on the shoulder and the little devil on the shoulder, the ego center is the little devil, your intuitive center and your higher self is the little angel. So your ego center wants, and actually, hold on, not just your ego center, society, your family and friends and everything that we are taught, all of that is telling you to move on, to give up, to walk away from your twin because it's not working out for whatever reasons. Like some people, it's more messy than others. But whatever reason, you're in separation, it's not working out, and your ego center and friends, family, society, conditioning, all of it is telling you to walk away. So you're fighting the connection and you're trying to give up. And the reason why it hurts so much is because your soul is like, no, you're not going anywhere. Like, this is where you're supposed to be. This is who you're supposed to be with. Stop trying to give up. The more you fight it and the more you try to give up, the more pain you feel. And it's because your soul is triggering that separation wound to tell you, no, you are not supposed to be separated from this person. You are going to be with this person. Trust it. I remember, and this was from before I was dealing with the spiritual warfare. I was just trying to make sense of our separation and not understanding it because it was clear that we both wanted, to be with each other, even though, back then it was super complicated for the reasons why he wasn't with me. But I could tell how he felt. I could tell, like, we kept trying to come back together and having obstacles in the way. So in any case, I couldn't make sense of it. I couldn't understand. And I was trying to let go. And I specifically remember times where I would be laying on the couch crying and upset. And it was that, like I said, it was that my soul, like, telling me, like, you're not supposed to try to let go and move on. And as soon as I made that switch in my head of stop trying to give up and just, figure out how he can be in your life. Like, literally, as soon as I made that switch, it was like flicking a switch and I was completely okay. And that was part of how I made the connection and realized that, like, part of the reason why it feels so bad is because my soul is telling me, like, no, stop. Stop trying to fight it. Stop trying to give up. So that is another reason why it hurts so much, is because when you're fighting it and you're trying to give up, your soul is going to tell you, like, no, you are not supposed to give up. I'm feeling the need to, again, add a caveat that exactly how that goes is probably going to depend on which type of twin flame you are, which I've talked about in the past. I need to talk more about with and more in depth. But there's 4 different types of twin flames and then subgroups of those and not all of them are meant for union in this lifetime. I am, because I'm in that group. And it's part of assisting with ascension as well. So that's part of it too. Like, my soul was like, no, like, you are assisting with ascension in this lifetime. You are going to come into union with your twin and you cannot give up. But for a different group of twins that are not meant for union in this lifetime, they might not go through that exact same experience. So that's something to keep in mind. And that also has to do with how much your soul will is or isn't overriding your free will in this lifetime. And that also depends on which type of twin flame you are and which group you're in. Okay, so that's another factor. I think there's going to be one more, part 3. Hold on. Okay, so that was one reason why it hurts so much, in those early stages. It's, the triggering of that separation wound. But what it's also doing is triggering other wounds that to bring them to your attention for you to recognize that you need to heal them. So when you're feeling that intense ache, like you need this person, I mean, part of the reason why you feel like you need this person is that separation wound. Your soul wants to be reunited with them. And it's also telling you can't give up on them. But it's also highlighting if you have any wounds or issues that you need to heal, such as codependency or anxious ambivalent attachment disorder, or self-worth wounds. So the more that you feel like you need this person, you need to be with this person in order to be happy, the more those wounds are highlighted, because the reality is that you shouldn't feel like you can't be happy without this person. It's interesting to me to reflect on, because I do remember a time when I felt like I feel like I'm on an airplane that's stuck in a holding pattern permanently and it's never going to land. And I just wanted off the plane. And that was part of when, I felt those suicidal thoughts, because I was like, I need to get off the plane. Like I felt like I can't do this indefinitely. And I felt like I don't want to go through the motions of living without really being happy, because I feel like I'm stuck in that holding pattern. But now looking back on it, I can recognize that was also because of those core wounds that needed to be healed in me. And now that they are, I don't feel like that. Of course, we've both come a long way in our journey and our process and defeating spiritual warfare and all of that. There was a lot of things going on that all played a role and a factor in how I felt back then. But I can recognize that definitely was, I would have called myself like codependent or something like that before, but, and the spiritual warfare was a distraction as well. Like, even though those core wounds were healed for me, the spiritual warfare was a distraction where they got healed along the way as I went. And it wasn't always a conscious thought process, which is, it goes like that for a lot of divine masculines too. And that's how it was for me. But yeah, like looking back, I can see how it wasn't fair to him for me to feel that way or to say anything like that to him, because I needed to be okay on my own. I needed to not need him in that way. And I do fully believe that spirit brings each twin through the process. On this side, it would be more so for the divine feminines, but both sides. But brings each twin through the process of being completely okay independently, so that you don't have that codependent need for the other person. You choose them because you want to be with them and you love them so deeply and completely, but you don't need to be with them in a codependent way, if that makes sense. So I really noticed that difference now. And I also, when I was thinking about it earlier before I started recording, I was thinking about that difference of back when I felt that way, like I needed to be with him or I wanted to die versus now where I feel like completely okay. Just, I guess you could say while I'm in this like waiting period, I'm trying to think of how to explain it. Because we're in the reunion phase, and I would say that our relationship is solid and stable, and that we both know exactly how we feel, and it's like a long distance relationship. But it also is in a waiting phase because of logistical reasons. So while I'm in like this waiting phase and this quiet period, and it's even to some extent a void as well, because I don't know everything going on. I'm not bothered at all. Like, not at all. I mean, even last year, as much as surrendered as I was, and as much as I thought I was completely surrendered, I can see the difference now, that there was still some stuff that would pick at me and bother me, and I'm not bothered at all now. Like, I am completely fine and completely trusting and not worried, stressed, anxious, nothing. And I just reflecting on how I feel now versus how I felt then. It's very enlightening. And it gives me a greater understanding of the different phases of the journey, and like, why the divine feminine feels the way the divine feminine feels in those early stages. So I guess to those of you who are in those early stages, you really do have to move through it, because that's the only way you're going to heal, is by feeling it and releasing it and moving through those stages. You don't really have a choice, but like, I'm here to tell you that you will get through it, and you will feel better, and it won't be so painful anymore. And you will, reach the reunion stage, and you will be able to have that hope and trust and faith, and be able to truly surrender. Which, surrendering as well, like, it's not like a one and done, okay? Like, you'll reach a state of surrender, and then you'll go through some more healing and peel back some more layers, and then you'll reach a deeper state of surrender. And then you'll go through some more healings and peel back some more layers, and then you'll reach a deeper state of surrender. Like, this entire process, this entire journey is a constant spiral that has forward steps and backward steps, and more purging and more healing and more releasing and deeper surrender. Like, it's a constant. It is a constant, okay? That I can promise you. And so if anything, actually, like, know that, like, as much as you might think, oh, I've done what I need to do or whatever, like, I can promise you it's a constant spiral healing process that will continue until it's time, until you're ready for union. So just keep that in mind. But also know that it won't always hurt so much. It won't always be so hard. It will get better. Even when you're still separated, it will get better. It will get easier. And it's not your twin's fault. It is this is Spirit's way of putting us through this deep healing process. And as gut-wrenching as it is to go through, it's a necessary part of our healing and growth, because our souls agreed to it, and our souls are at that stage of our soul growth development as well. But like it's not your twin's fault, and your twin, like, if my twin's watching and any other twins, like, they should not feel guilty about it, and they should not feel guilty about what the circumstances of separation or anything like that. Like, everyone needs to understand that this is part of what this journey is about. This is part of what both people are supposed to go through for their healing and their growth. And that's the only way to do that. It's the only way to get to heal those deep, deep inner wounds from childhood, from past lives, from all this stuff. Like, you have to feel it, and you have to go through these difficult experiences. You have to go through a dark night of the soul, whatever it is. Like, Spirit, your own higher self, and your spirit guides are putting you through what you're going through, because that is how you need to heal. And it sucks going through it, but you will get through it. You will get to the other side. You are the lighthouse and beacons for each other, inspiring each other and motivating each other to get through that miserable healing process. But you'll get to the other side, and you'll be so much better when you get there. So much better. And then you will find your way back to union when you're both fully ready, and when Spirit is aligning everything exactly how it needs to be. And that reminds me, I have one more thing I want to talk about, and I'm at the end of this video now, so part 4 is coming at you. Okay, so what I just remembered that I wanted to add to that. This is actually something that came to me earlier on, and I wrote it down and took a note of it to talk about. And just so happens I'll be talking about it now too. So I was talking about at the end of the last video how, once you get through your healing process, then it's, down to Spirit divinely aligning and timing everything exactly how it needs to be. Well, there's another factor you need to think about or you need to realize when it comes to that. Like, I mean, I've talked before in the past, but maybe you haven't seen those. So let me just say one more time, Spirit orchestrates all of this. Spirit aligns everything exactly how it needs to be. Like, there's only so much that I can say to help you guys understand this. Like, I know this with all of my being because of the experiences I have been through. I have also talked to Spirit about it, but I knew this before I confirmed it with Spirit because of the experiences I've been through. Like, I can tell you with 100% certainty that every single thing that happens in your life, in your whole life, not just your twin flame journey, is happening for a reason, is guided and planned and orchestrated by your own higher self and your spirit team. And it is part of your path for a reason, the good and the bad. I mean, there have literally been things that I have gone through that have been extremely painful, that I have said to Spirit, why did I have to go through that? Why did it have to be that way? And Spirit has told me, because it was necessary for it to be that way in this lifetime, for everything to work out how it needs to. And I have seen specific examples of things that have happened that have been orchestrated in my life and journey, as well as in clients, where you can just, when you're going through it, it's tough, but when you get to the other side and you look back in hindsight, you see how all the dots connect, and you see how this had to happen so that this would happen, so that this would happen, and dot. And it makes complete sense. So I can tell you with 100% certainty, because I have seen it firsthand, that every single thing that happens for a reason, even the worst stuff. And I know now, that, like I said, our own higher selves and our spirit team, I mean, whether it's our higher selves working with God himself, or I don't know if God delegates it out or how it works exactly, but, and I do know from the hypnosis sessions, Life Between Lives, that the soul groups coordinate together to some extent as well. But in any case, our higher selves with our spirit team and our soul groups and God or whoever, like, they plan out our lives. Our lives really are predetermined, predestined, particularly twin flames. Like, it may be that other souls that aren't twin flames, maybe it's not as planned out for them. And, that's a good question for me to pose to Spirit. But for twin flames, it's pre-written, it's predestined. How much soul will overrides free will depends on which type of twin flame you are, but definitely for twin flame quads, which is the primary group of twin flames and is the main group that I channel for, soul will overrides free will, like, almost completely, and everything is predetermined, predestined, pre-written. And, like, you literally you might think that you have control over it, but you don't really. Like, everything's just unfolding how it needs to. I mean, there are some things that there's some wiggle room, like Spirit does adjust for things along the way. Like, so basically what I mean is that the timing isn't going to be 100% exact, and there might be little detours along the way, but for the most part, it's predetermined, and they adjust as necessary as you go, based on whether it's free will choices, or because there's still some degree of free will, or if it's external factors, like that other people, like the karmics, doing something that causes a delay or something like that. So fine. But yeah, everything is planned out and orchestrated by our higher selves, by our spirit team. But, and so the point that I wanted to make, what came to me earlier was, so it's all orchestrated for what you need to go through, what your twin needs to go through, but also what the karmic needs to go through. Whether that's a karmic partner or a different person, like a parent or a family member or a friend or coworker, like whoever it is, whoever the karmic is. And pretty much everybody has a karmic in some capacity. Of course, how intricately involved in your journey the karmic is will change how much the lessons apply to them also. Particularly karmic partners will be the case where it's more orchestrated around them also. But yeah, like you have to remember that it's not just about divinely orchestrating the path for you and your twin. It's also about the karmics and other people involved as well, to be honest. Like, spirit aligns everything to happen in the way that it needs to for everybody involved. And when it comes to the karmics, it might be a case where, like, maybe you feel like, why is my twin still with this person? Especially if your twin isn't happy and doesn't want to be with the person. And you might feel like you don't understand why things aren't changing faster. And you need to realize that sometimes, not all times, but sometimes things aren't changing faster because there are certain experiences that the karmic soul needs to go through. There are certain lessons that the karmic soul needs to learn. And so as your twin is moving through their process, it's what's the word I want to use? It's bringing about the necessary healing and growth for your twin flame. And it's also putting the karmic through necessary lessons for their soul growth process. So it is very possible that there are times when the exact ending of that karmic situation isn't being orchestrated just yet, because spirit is still bringing both of them through whatever it is that they need to go through. And, you know, I don't know for certain if your twin might, like, maybe it's possible that your twin finishes their side of the process and there's still a little bit that the karmic needs to go through, so spirit drags out a little bit, but it might not be. I don't know for sure. I have to ask spirit that question. But I definitely can see where, and spirit told me earlier to talk about this, but I can definitely see where there are times when that process may be elongated to the divine feminine's perspective, because spirit is still bringing the karmic as well through necessary lessons. And so you might not see where your twin might still be going through some healing or growth, but they probably are. But it's both parties. It's not just your twin. And it's you too. Honestly, the truth is that all 3 people, or 4 people if there's 4, all of them are still going. If you're not in union yet, then all of the people involved, whether it's 3, whether it's 4, are going through certain necessary lessons and growth still. And when the time is right, when everybody's ready or is in the process of integrating those lessons and those healings, that's when spirit will orchestrate everything to change. So I want to say, I have to be quick here. 2 quotes are coming to mind real quick. One was from Ted Lasso, which is awesome if you haven't watched it. But Keely has a really bad day. She goes to a bar and she's talking to the bartender or the owner, and she says, what's it called? If it's the opposite of the Midas touch, like everything I touch turns to shit. And the bar owner says, well, something to the effect of, I can't remember her exact words, but shit leads to growth. Like shit creates growth or whatever. And that is such a valid point. So remember that when you're going through the tough parts. And the other thing was, I'm going to have to post this on my Instagram because a friend wrote it out. It's longer, but basically there's a certain type of plant that is literally like you plant the seed and it doesn't breach the surface of the soil for 5 years. But then after 5 years, and you have to tend to it carefully. After 5 years, it sprouts and it grows really quickly in a matter of weeks. That's what the twin flame journey is like. And that's what you have to have patience for. Put in the work, the growth will come. Okay?